if you replace Russell, then what you're doing is you're replacing Russell, who is already shown he can completely deliver without causing any issues in the team, is working really well alongside Antonelli. So at the moment, you've best of both worlds. You have
And
someone
his father
who
is not around.
So my point is, you've got someone who you know right now can, like, at the end of the day, the difference between Verstappen and Russell in terms of delivery for me.
Now let's move on to the race.
Yeah.
George Russell is now a race winner in 2025. Thoughts?
Yes. Amazing. Look, at the end of the day, the thing for me is, I'm just looking at the results here from this. Like, I'm just pulling it up. But, like, it's just, to me, I mean, I know I'm going to get a lot of hate from Verstappen fans for saying this, but just re-sign Russell. Like, I mean, it's just, at the end of the day,
talked about it at depth last time around as well, right?
Verstappen is an absolutely brilliant driver, and I will happily say best on the grid. And I think that if we were talking about 24 weekends, George will show up for 20 of them, Max will show up for 24, right? That's, if you want to put it in, he'll just show up every single weekend.
Yeah.
I get that. But, like, if you want someone who's going to win a championship, Russell will do that. Like, I just don't, there's nothing more he can do now. And at the end of the day, like, you know, just, I genuinely feel like the difference between Russell and Verstappen just isn't that big. And
1920, right? That's how you measure the metric.
I think if you wanted to put, like, if we were putting it out of, like, you know, I don't know what way we would do it, but, like, if we were ranking them in close, like, it would be 100% delivery rate Verstappen, 99% Leclerc, 98% Russell. Like, that's how close it is. And the other thing about this, honestly, as well, is I want to see them, like, I want to see Russell in a proper car, you know, because he's always been in difficult, underwhelming cars for his entire career, and he's delivering constantly. So realistically, look, if Toto wants to sign Russell or Verstappen, the pragmatic thing to do is replace Antonelli. And Antonelli's been brilliant. Listen to me. No, I'm saying the Antonelli's been brilliant, but I think Antonelli's curve, like, it's going to go crazy up at some point. Like, it's already going wildly up.
Yeah.
So the pragmatic thing to do is, at this point in time, replace Antonelli, but your upside on Antonelli is way higher if you leave him for a while. So I just don't get, like, if you're Toto right now, like, why would you change that lineup? You've got a lineup that just, like, because if you bring Verstappen in, it's going to fuck up the entire atmosphere of everything. Because if you bring Verstappen in to replace Antonelli, you're losing a lot of upside where Antonelli could be a future absolute superstar.
He goes to Ferrari. Goes to Ferrari
Antonelli becomes a future champion in my book, regardless, right? If you replace Russell, then what you're doing is you're replacing Russell, who is already shown he can completely deliver without causing any issues in the team, is working really well alongside Antonelli. So at the moment, you've best of both worlds. You have
and
someone
his father
who
is not around.
So, like, my point is, you've got someone who you know right now can, like, at the end of the day, the difference between Verstappen and Russell in terms of delivery for me, like, there is a difference. I'm giving you that. But as I keep saying to people, like, margins in F1 are small. And to be honest, the car would have to be like what way am I trying to say this? The competitive field between the two cars would have to be so close for the difference between Russell and Verstappen to be noticeable that I would just keep Russell, and that way you can keep bringing Antonelli up and you get best of both worlds. You have someone who can deliver right now and a future absolute, like, brilliant driver to come.
Tell me.
It just seems to me like a crazy idea.
Why do you think Toto is still hungover on this?
One, I think it's, you know, the whole ex-girlfriend thing, isn't it? Like, that's the big thing. But
I understand that.
I also do think part of it is, as well, he just wants to fuck around with Red Bull. I think he knows if he pulls, I think there's still a bit of a, I want to fuck over Red Bull because they fucked us over in his, I know they didn't directly, he knows they didn't directly, but it's going to be in his head.
Yeah.
So I think part of it is, I know if I pull that pin out and get rid of Verstappen from Red Bull, that whole team comes crumbling down. Like, because that's the final straw for Horner, and he knows if Horner leaves, that's it, game over for
done.
Red Bull.
Red Bull,
you know.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think it's that. The other thing is, look, I get it. Like, he's a 4-time world champion. It's the same with Vettel, same with Schumacher, same with Hamilton. With those types of people, you know, it's a big boon to just get someone like that to come to your team. So I get it. But if we're talking just in terms of like actual delivery of like performance, it's not worth it.
Yeah.
It's not worth it. And I know that's going to upset a lot of Verstappen fans, but that's what the comments are for. Complain, argue, tell me I'm a moron.
What do you guys think about Jason's view that Toto should ditch Max Verstappen per se and
just keep the line?
George's? Yeah. I'll share my view. I think there's a reason why Toto is so hell-bent on doing something on these lines. I think it's got more to do with the kind of relationship he has with Max. He's developed it over time. It seems to be there. I think it still doesn't, and I think it's criminally incorrect the way he's gone about it, but I think he doesn't rate George. I don't think
Yeah, that's the way it feels all the time. Because even last year, when like Hamilton wasn't performing and George was performing brilliantly, and Hamilton had it's not like a situation where Hamilton was sticking around for the long term. Like Hamilton had already gone away, and yet still he seemed to be backing Hamilton more. And it was like, what are you doing? Like, what? Why are you doing this? Like, it's gone.
Almost a stepson treatment that George keeps on getting, isn't it?
But it's like the overachieving stepson as well. Like George is spectacularly achieved.
It's like nothing is enough.
But of his entire career, including his junior career, by the way, not just F1, like his entire career, he has shown that he is an absolutely brilliant driver. And the only dig that even Verstappen fans can give is there's 2 races in his entire career where he's bottled it, if you want, right? There's more in Verstappen's career I could point out than that. Like, if we want to dig into that. And I'm not a George fan. I just think the whole conversation is ridiculous.
I think like since last season, we've been pretty much shouting over the rooftops that George is criminally underrated.
There's only 2023 though. That's it. Like 2023, he couldn't get on top of the car for a good while. And even then, it wasn't like he was performing horribly. He just
out-qualified Lewis over the season. So even that,
it was just Lewis was beating him in races. He wasn't comfortable in that car.
Yeah.
But like
too many mistakes and
But like that's it. That's it. Like every other thing, like in a Williams that was atrocious, he was delivering. Like he jumped in for Hamilton at short notice and nearly won the race.
Yeah.
Like he's done everything. There's nothing he physically cannot do anymore. And in fact, I would put this simply, if Toto does kick him out, right, and Verstappen comes in, Ferrari should immediately upgrade their number 2 driver. Like that, just immediately. Because you already know it's an upgrade on Hamilton that will cost you 1/10 of the price. Like, we know
That's
that.
It. Yeah.
So if I'm Ferrari, I'm just calling them up because there's a good chance Leclerc is going to go in a year. So Ferrari should probably bank someone, right now. Yeah. But he's probably going to Aston, let's be honest, if that happens.
Yeah, we'll get to that. Now, first, before we talk about his contract situation.
Sorry, we got really into that like immediately.
Yeah, I mean,
I did. My bad.
Yeah, exactly. I'm there to steer the ship back. The race, by the way, fantastic. First of all, why Mercedes did as good as it did here, why the tire degradation and everything was perfect. So it was pretty much down to the tire temps. The temperature, again, Canada, it's Canada, by the way. It's always cold comparatively. Temperatures on track on Sunday were around 44, 45 degrees, which is pretty hot. But the way
George kept saying it was still cool out there. He's like, I'm not sure how we'll go at hotter temperatures.
The thing is, it's usually the track temperature is different than the normal temperatures. The ambient temperature is around 26, 27, 28. But the track temperatures are around 48. And 46, 44, 45 was when the race started. Why that is the case? Because the tarmac it absorbs heat.
Yeah.
And it absorbs it quite extensively. I mean, again, this was something that, what's his name? Sam Collins was actually talking about. So that is one of the reasons. Now, in Canada, again, this is from John Noble, The Race. He wrote an article about why Mercedes was as good as it was this weekend. Check it out. According to him, it was entirely down to the fact that the way tire degradation was in Canada, first of all, it was not rear limited as it tends to be. It helped Mercedes to keep the tires in the window for longer. And they didn't really have the kind of tire degradation which almost everyone expected.
Yeah.
Once that was sorted, look, Mercedes as a car is brilliant. The only weakness it has is its rear tires get overheated. That's why it kind of got fucked in Imola, where it just fell off the cliff, and even to a certain extent in Barcelona as well. Here, that was not the case. Once that was sorted, it had a decent advantage. Again, just one area where Mercedes seems to have a disadvantage over both Red Bull and McLaren is the way the rear tires degrade.
Yeah.
For Mercedes, it's a bit more extreme. That's why they tend to lose in most areas, in most tracks. Here they didn't, and that's why they just, once the pole position was secured, that was his, and he did that.
He got a brilliant start as well, like a really good start.
Yeah, didn't need to use the penalty points on his license, so that was a good thing.
That was another thing he said that he brought up, and Max fans obviously went a bit nuts about it, and I was like, if Max said that, you'd be hilarious, you'd be laughing, because it is objectively hilarious.
It was cheeky.
Yeah,
and that's how it should be. And the best part is how did the sentence began? We are mates. Something's going on. But again, brilliant race, and again, this race was an example and probably one of the biggest proofs that George Russell is one of the best drivers in Formula One. In my view, top three: Max, Leclerc, and George. These are your top three drivers right now in Formula One.
I would put Oscar number 4 the way it's going as well. And
I'll get to it. I wasn't that impressed.
Sorry, we need to point out, actually, it's Alonso P1. It's just in a shit car.
No. It's Nico Rosberg. Nico Hulkenberg P1.
Hulkenberg, Alonso, Max.
Yes.
And then obviously.
Exactly.
Yeah.
The old age tax. We tend to give it to the geriatrics. Okay, now let's talk about the contract thing, because I hope you didn't hear that sound. There was something that came up.
Didn't hear a thing.
Okay. Sorry. So now let's talk about the contract thing. I think there is maybe a case where Toto Wolff has had a conversation with George, because on Thursday there was a press scrum that they have. I was going through the audio file, and when George was talking about the contract, it became quite clear that there is some kind of a conversation that Toto has had with George, and how that conversation has gone is his first priority is Max.
By
the way, there have been reports that Kimi has already signed an extension. It will be announced in Italy until 2027. Until 2027, he has already been secured. Now, when it comes to George, I think he knows that is the case, and that's why when he talked about it more on the lines of maybe somehow, some way he can just coddle his way at Mercedes and keep the seat. How he was very complimentary of Max. Secondly, there's also this thing. It seems Toto will make the second approach after Austria, because if you remember, Austria is the time when the whole... Can you do one thing
performance clause.
Yeah, can you do one thing for me? Just check the standings. What's the gap between Max and Leclerc?
Why Leclerc?
Leclerc is in P5 right now, and if Max is
P3 or lower is what I heard.
No, P5 or lower. No, P4 or lower. P4 or lower.
I heard it was P3 or lower. I think it's P3.
No? There's this report that came out just last week.
Well, he's not going to be there then, because Leclerc's 104 points and Max is 155.
Then that's done. Then that should be done ideally. But let's see. I think whichever exit clause
I was pretty sure it was P3 or lower in the standings. Basically, if he's not top 2.
That's what the initial information was, but later the information came out just last week, right? Just pre-Barcelona, there was this thing where it came out that if Leclerc is the one that they have to keep in mind. I don't remember which public... It was Motorsport that reported it. So...
Yeah, I don't know if I trust those guys.
Exactly. Now Motorsport is actually falling off the wagon.
Yeah.
Anyways,
I heard Austria. Basically, he needed to be in the top 2 in the championship. Basically, the idea was like, I need to have a car that's fighting for the title. If I'm not winning the title, that's on me. But you need to provide me a car that's fighting for the title. So top 2 is like the kind of like
threshold.
Which would make more sense to me than P5 because why would Max want to why would Max care if he's in P4 or P5?
Top 2 and top 3 cars. That's the explanation that was written. I mean, look, top 2, top 3 is a very, very hard metric to keep in mind.
Top 2, then it would be P4, right? Like that would be, I guess makes sense. Like if he's in P5, then he's not in the top. Yeah, I don't know. It seems to me like Red Bull were pretty confident in signing him again at that point. So
maybe. It's anyways. Either ways, the exit clause will get
matter anyway. Let's be honest. Like it's just a buyout.
That's fair.
It's just how
either
much.
ways, it's precisely, and it's going to come. Whichever exit clause is there, it is going to get triggered after Austria. So we'll probably know whatever it is. What I expect that's going to happen is, if Max does not trigger an exit clause after Austria, the next race is in Silverstone, and that's where Toto announces the extension of George.
Yeah.
But if Max triggers the contract in Austria, Toto announces it there and then. That's what I expect is going to happen next. That's probably the way it is going to be. Now, my view in what Toto should do, I don't think a Max George lineup works. I really don't think it works.
No, it definitely doesn't.
And I don't think a Max Kimi lineup works as well.
This is the key issue. Yeah, like what do you do? This is why I just think
you're burning
it's just
both drivers.
Yeah,
That's my worry.
Because, like, put it this way: if I'm Antonelli's dad, right, and working with his management team and so on,
you'd be very proud if you are.
Yeah, I would be. I definitely would be. But I'd also be strange because I'd be like, why do I have an Italian kid? But yeah, like, also he has hair. That's really strange.
His father doesn't, by the way.
Yeah, I know. Yeah. So it doesn't make a difference.
Give it time.
But like, if you're Antonelli's management, though, surely, like, if Max comes in, surely you're like, right, we got to get out of here as quickly as possible then, because Jos is basically going to be complaining every time. And if Antonelli even slightly beats Verstappen at any point,
I think it's not about. I don't think Jos worries about Antonelli slightly beating Max. I think what Jos has a tendency to do is
he wants Max to have complete preferential treatment, right?
Exactly. Everything should be for Max, and that is what he demands. And again, it depends from team to team, which team wants to do it and which team doesn't. Toto has already been told what are the demands. I'm pretty sure he would be knowing by now. And if he does, and if he's still willing to wait it out for this long, it tells you something, isn't it? Let's see. I'd like to see George again. First of all, I'd be more than happy if George moves to Aston Martin because I'd look like a genius because I was the one that predicted it.
It would for that. It would be funnier though. It would be funnier though if George went to Red Bull and Red Bull somehow managed to win the championship
next season.
Like if George goes to Red Bull, Horner hangs on, pulls it together, and they end up winning the championship next year.
Somehow the Red Bull powertrain is actually brilliant
powertrain, and like Vache beats out Newey with the designs and whatnot, and it becomes like because it would just be the most absolutely hilarious situation.
The pie that they'll be forced to eat would be very humble. So
there. That's absolutely not going to happen though.
Exactly.
Yeah,
look, it might.
I mean, stranger things have happened, but it would be very,
if you're
very
George,
odd.
If you're George, how are you? Because for me, the thing is, he's handling it very, very. As someone who is very self-aware, that's how he's treated the entire thing, and he's been very, very clear about it.
What I like about George is what he said. I think is accurate, which is basically he was like, "Look, me getting a contract and a seat depends on my performance. So I'm just going to focus on my performance and we'll see what happens with the contract." That's essentially what he said. Mm-hmm. And at the moment, he can't really perform much better. So I think the good news for George is that, like, if Max doesn't come across, George keeps the seat because there's no upgrade unless he can get Leclerc, but I don't think he's even looking for that. That
doesn't make any sense, right? It's not a massive jump.
No, and also he's not like he's not a world champion, so it's like, it's not really an upgrade in terms of Toto's eyes. Yeah. So it's Max or George. George knows that. And at the end of the day, if Max does come in, surely George is looked at by every other team at the moment. Like, you know, like, except for maybe Ferrari. But to be honest, if you're George, do you want to go to Ferrari? Probably not.
No. I mean,
if you're
smart.
a sane person, do you want to go to Ferrari? Probably not.
Yeah, which neither Lewis and Charles are, by the way. Both of them. What the fuck are you doing at Ferrari?
Lewis, to give Lewis credit, I mean, look, he either goes to Ferrari and things work out, which they're not going to, or he goes to Ferrari and makes a shit ton of money to do, frankly,
That's not or.
Which is what he's doing.
Happen anyways, yeah.
Yeah, but he's getting paid a shit ton of money to underperform right now. He's got the Raikkonen contract, so it's good.
Yeah.
You know, like it's...
Yeah, it's better than Raikkonen contract, because he's paid more than the
he's
star
performing.
driver.
He's getting paid more for worse performances, so it's working out brilliantly so far, yeah.
That's there, yeah. Anyways, enough
He
of
said
Mercedes.
the car can't dance.
Oh, God, yeah. Yeah, you saw that.
Even though Leclerc can make it dance, I don't know. It's very strange.
Yeah.
If only he
get
had
to
a
that.
qualify. Oh wait. Anyway,
He did.
we'll move on.